She was small, fast, and terrified, darting through the crowded street with a billionaire's wallet clutched tightly in her hand. Serena didn't dare look back, but the fear in her footsteps revealed a truth far heavier than the crime itself. Behind her, the man she stole from was closing in, furious, completely unaware that he was just seconds away from discovering something that would leave him frozen in shock and speechless. What could force a little girl to run like her life depended on it? Before we dive deeper into this story, tell me, where are you watching from? And if you want more stories like this, help me by subscribe. Serena had learned to move through the world quietly, the way many black girls were forced to. Eyes lowered, steps careful, always aware of who was watching. She was young, too young to carry the kind of weight life had already placed on her shoulders. Every morning began the same way, slipping out of the cramped apartment she shared with her sick mother, weaving past corners where people pretended not to see struggle, and hoping no one asked questions she couldn't afford to answer. But on this particular day, the city felt heavier. The streets were crowded, voices sharp, and the summer heat pressed down like judgment. Serena wasn't looking for trouble. She was looking for a way to survive, just enough money to keep her mother's medicine from running out. She had tried everything, asked everywhere, but the world rarely showed mercy to girls who looked like her. A few blocks away, a billionaire stepped out of a glass tower, polished, powerful, untouched by the weight of lives like Serena's. His world was built on abundance, hers on scarcity. Their paths were never meant to cross, but fate doesn't ask permission. In a heartbeat, their lives collided. One accidental bump, one desperate decision, and everything shifted. Serena didn't run because she wanted to. She ran because she had no other choice. What she didn't know was that the powerful man storming after her wasn't chasing a wallet. He was chasing an assumption he had carried his entire life. And what neither of them knew was that this moment would expose a brutal truth about race, judgment, and the unseen battles children like Serena fight every single day. This was the beginning of a story that would force a man of privilege to confront a reality he had never bothered to see. Serena ran with the kind of desperation only a child fighting for survival could understand. Her small frame weaved through crowds, slipping between bodies, dodging hands, ignoring the burning in her legs. She wasn't running from guilt. She was running from a world that never gave her a fair chance. Behind her, the billionaire's footsteps thundered like a warning she'd heard her whole life. People like him were believed, protected, defended. People like her were hunted long before they ever did anything wrong. As she turned down a narrow street, the divide between their lives widened in ways neither of them fully understood. He chased with anger at the idea someone dared take from him. She fled with fear of what powerful men did when they felt disrespected by black children who stepped outside invisible lines drawn by society. The city blurred past her. Vendors shouted, cars honked, but none of it drowned out the pounding truth in her chest. She couldn't afford to be caught. Too many children like her had been punished before being heard, judged before being understood. She had no reason to believe this man would be any different. He closed the distance quickly, fueled by pride more than loss. His wealth had insulated him from consequences for so long that the idea of chasing a child through the streets felt like reclaiming control. Every step he took carried assumptions about who she was, what she wanted, and why she ran. Not once did it cross his mind that desperation, not deceit, had driven her action. Serena cut through a side alley, her breath sharp and uneven. But the moment she turned the corner, she stumbled. Her worn-out sandals, held together by hope more than stitching, finally gave way. She hit the ground hard, palms scraping against concrete. For a split second, she lay still, the world spinning, her heartbeat loud enough to drown out everything. But she got up. She always got up. She pushed forward again, limping now, clutching the wallet like a lifeline and a curse. The alley narrowed into a dead-end maze of rusted gates, dumpsters, and shadows. She knew these routes well, places where children hid from things bigger than them, but today, even the shadows couldn't offer safety. The billionaire entered the alley seconds later, his anger cooling into something else, something sharper. He expected to find a criminal. Instead, he found a child whose entire life was written in exhaustion and survival etched into her tiny shoulders. Yet assumptions ran deeper than truth. His approach was heavy with judgment, while Serena's fear shifted into something quieter, resignation. She had been cornered by life more times than she could count. This was just one more cage. But as he stepped closer, something unexpected happened. For the first time, he really looked at her. Not at her hoodie, not at the wallet, but at her face. And what he saw wasn't a thief. It was a girl on the edge of breaking. The world seemed to pause. The air thickened with a truth neither had spoken, but both could feel. This wasn't a crime. This was survival. Yet the rising tension didn't end there, because beyond this alley, beyond this misunderstanding, lay a far harsher reality waiting to unravel. And their collision, born out of desperation and privilege, was only just beginning to expose what the world had tried so hard to ignore. Serena stood trapped in the narrow alley, her small chest rising and falling in sharp, frightened bursts. The billionaire approached with heavy steps, but the power in that space didn't come from wealth. It came from the imbalance life had carved between them. She wasn't just cornered by a man, she was cornered by everything the world had ever assumed about black children like her. The ones judged first, heard last, blamed always. Her hands trembled as she held out the wallet, not as a surrender, but as a final attempt to be understood. Yet her fear wasn't of punishment, it was of being dismissed, overlooked, reduced to another stereotype in a city that rarely paused long enough to see the truth. The billionaire reached for the wallet, but something made him stop. It wasn't guilt, it wasn't mercy, it was the quiet collapse he saw in Serena's posture, the way her shoulders drooped under a weight far too heavy for someone her age, a weight he had never carried a single day in his life. In that frozen moment, the world around them blurred. The alley, the noise, the rush of traffic, all of it faded into a suffocating stillness. Serena stood there, exhausted from running not just today, but her entire life. And he, for the first time, truly saw her, not as a thief, but as a child living on the edge of losing everything. But before he could process the truth, the intensity of the moment sharpened. A patrol car rolled up to the end of the alley, silent, unnoticed until its presence cast a harsh shadow across the brick walls. Officers stepped out with quick, decisive movements, responding not to truth, but to a report that never considered the possibility of innocence. Serena froze. She had seen what happened next in too many neighborhoods, too many stories that ended in fear, pain, and silence. Her body went rigid, not because she was guilty, but because she knew the world often treated children who looked like her as threats long before they ever became victims. The billionaire turned toward the officers, but the moment he hesitated, Serena already understood. This wasn't just about a wallet anymore. This was about whether the truth would be seen before the world delivered its punishment. When the officer stepped into the alley, Serena stood motionless, her small frame caught between fear and fate. For a moment, it felt as if the world had already made its decision about her before she ever had a chance to speak. The billionaire stepped forward, not with authority, but with clarity. He told them exactly what he had seen. He told them she wasn't a thief, not a criminal, not a threat, just a terrified child trying to survive a life far harsher than anything he had ever known. But Serena didn't relax. Not right away. Years of being judged before being understood don't disappear with one moment of truth. What changed wasn't the world. It was the man standing beside her, realizing how close he had come to becoming part of the problem. The officer stepped back, the tension dissolving as quietly as it had appeared. Serena's shoulders dropped, but her eyes told a deeper story, one of exhaustion, one of a childhood shaped by fear instead of safety. As they walked out of the alley together, something shifted, not loudly, not dramatically, but in a way that mattered. The billionaire had chased a girl believing she had taken something from him, but by the end, he understood the truth. It was the world that had already taken so much from her. And in that moment, he didn't see her as a thief. He saw her as a reminder of how dangerously easy it is to judge, accuse, fear, and how powerful it can be to pause, to listen, to see the human being in front of us. Because Serena's story isn't rare. It repeats in different cities, with different names every single day. And the real question is, how many more children must run before the world stops chasing and finally starts understanding?